TBN, welcome to Dino Nowak. Hey, Dino.
Thank you. It's good to see you again.
Now, Dino, I know that you work with a lot of the Hollywood, celebrities, and so many times, we could say, well, what's so great about, the Hollywood celebrities, and I mean, what makes them different from anybody else? Well, one thing is that they can afford to hire whoever they want. Yeah. Okay? Let's just tell it like it is.
And they can afford a nanny, someone to do their laundry, do the yard work, take care of all those things as well. Yeah, things that average people don't have those resources.
That's right. So the fact that I feel that they've chosen you, obviously your expertise has been producing in their life. So what I want to do is I want you to share with the TV audience tonight some of the things that you found. I mean, here we are again. People have tried so many exercise programs, so many plans, and they've over and over, and they start out for 1 week, and then they're so sore they can't move. Or they try another program, and after 2 weeks, they just give up because it's just not worth it. It's too much work. Now, I've heard you before. We've had interviews in the past, and I know for a fact that you know some ways that if you'll get to the core of someone's issue and address them as a person, you can give some what would appear to be simplistic type of exercises, if you will, and they make dramatic results. Is that true?
Amazing, yeah. And we'll get into some of the exercises a little bit later on, but one of the things that I saw in dealing with these people is that with the artists is their livelihood is on the line, and so results are very key with them. But oftentimes it was frustrating for me as a fitness person because we had to get them to unhealthy states. Because we all know, you see people on TV, the camera adds 15 pounds, so they had to get to a point that was so thin that wasn't even healthy. And that's where I began to see that this went so much deeper than just the outside, aesthetic and appearance. And I began to see that you had to deal with those three components: your emotional, your spiritual, and physical fitness. Not just what do I eat and what kind of exercises do I do, but dig deeper. Because so much of our body image, identity, self-esteem is tied into that image in the mirror, and for a lot of people, a number on the scale, which means absolutely nothing. Yeah. I mean, I've had size 0, size 2 actresses in Hollywood that were 38% body fat, classifying them as obese, but yet I've had plus-size, quote-unquote, women that were healthy, fit, active, and 25%. But if you put those two women together, the world's going to choose the skinny one as being healthy every time.
That is such an important factor because, we know that anorexics actually have about a 50 to 60% body fat because they've eaten away their lean muscle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about metabolism before, and just kind of make this simplified for everybody. Metabolism is basically just your body functioning to exist and survive. And the way you boost metabolism is, number one, when people diets have been around since the 1800s. First low-carb diet was the 1830s. I mean, nothing revolutionary, nothing new about that. When you diet, you're trying to lose weight, get into smaller pant size. Your body literally thinks you're starving to death. And so God designed our bodies incredibly well that it will resist and fight you to survive. And so what happens is you're skipping meals. People skip breakfast. They eat at maybe 12 o'clock. They have a salad and do that whole thing. But your body's not getting enough calories in, and it thinks you're starving, so it suppresses your metabolism. So one of the quickest ways you can do to accelerate your metabolism is to eat breakfast. Wake up in the morning, piece of whole wheat toast, thin spread of peanut butter, banana, glass of skim milk or water, jumpstart that metabolism. Because what happens is, people, you've heard this before, oh, when I have breakfast, then I'm hungry all day. Well, that's the reason why, because your metabolism is coming out of the basement. So what you need to do is eat every 2 to 3 hours, smaller portions, breakfast being the biggest meal of the day and decreasing as you go down.
Okay, now with that, we want to eat the right foods, but also tell them about activity. Let me read you a statistic here that I saw, which is very alarming. It says, concerning leisure time activity, it says 62% of American adults never regularly perform any vigorous physical activity lasting 10 minutes or more during their leisure time. Now watch this, including 59% who are not active at all. Yeah. Okay? And then it says, according to a government poll revealed out of the top 10 New Year's resolutions, the number 1 is to lose weight. Again. And then the 3 out of those top 10 are get fit, eat right, and reduce all over stress. And we know that exercise solves every one of them.
Exercise is the key, and it's in our culture, it's a lot easier not to do something, i.e. not eating and starving yourself, and just actually go out and do something and exercise and be active. And that's, if you want to know what happened in America, why we're overweight, it's very simple. Back in 1970, the restaurant industry was a $40 billion a year industry. Fast forward 30 years, it grew to $440 billion. During that time, serving sizes increased tenfold. So we're eating out more. Also what happened is our jobs became much more sedentary. People used to work in the factories and the farms and the fields. Now we're in front of a desk on the computer all the time. Also, third factor is our entertainment became more sedentary. I mean, I'm not that old, but when I came home from school, I was outside. You couldn't get me in. I came home, there was 4 channels on TV, and they were soap operas or the news.
Right.
So, I mean, I was out the door, and if I was in the house, my mom had chores for me to do. Nowadays, kids come home, and you got Nickelodeon 24/7. I had to wait till Saturday morning, get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and watch cartoons. I don't know about you guys,
right.
but so you got 24/7 cartoons, computer, internet, video games, and so it's a lack of activity. I mean, let's face it, we've had fast food since the 1950s. We've had carbohydrates for centuries. So it's that out of balance, is that our expenditure is out of whack with our intake. So it's like going to the bank. If you go to the bank, they don't care if you make a deposit with nickels, pennies, dimes, or $1,000 bills. It's what is your net deposit versus your net withdrawal, and that's your balance. And so for most Americans, we finished the day with a surplus. We ate more than we used up. And so the best analogy I like to describe to people, it's like, think of driving your car. You have your car parked in the garage, and you got a friend who has a gas station. And they're going to agree to come over every day and drop off 10 gallons of gas. But once you get that set up, they're going to keep doing it. And so what happens is you don't drive that car. And day after day, the gas tank's full. So what do? You start getting those little red gas cans, start filling them up, and putting them in the garage. And soon they start piling up in the garage. Well, that's body fat. And so what happens is this right here, this is 5 pounds of body fat, okay? This is like little red gas cans. There's nothing wrong with fat per se, except saturated and trans fats, okay? But fat, think of this, this is your little red gas can in the garage. This is stored potential energy. And what happens is we're not driving the car enough. So what happens is you see this infomercial and says, oh, these pills will boost your metabolism. So what does that mean? That means is that it artificially accelerates your heart rate. That's what they're talking about. So that's like taking your car. You didn't feel like driving the car. So what do? You go get in the car, start the ignition, put it in neutral, and you floor the gas. And you rev the engine. That's what these pills do. When they say they accelerate your metabolism, that's the only way they do it is to accelerate how fast your heart is beating. So instead, what we need to do is start driving the car. And it might be you drive it down you back it up to the mailbox and drive it back in. Next week, you might go down the road, but start driving the car. It's as simple as that. And we tend to overcomplicate these things, and people are fearful to even have any kind of food past their lips. They don't know what to do. They get frustrated, they give up hope, and they do nothing at all. And say, hey, I can get the same results eating my chocolate and chips and ding-dongs and do that without trying all this other stuff. So 5 pounds, and the thing is, every pound of body fat is 3,500 calories. That's a lot of fuel. And so to put this in perspective, really try to simplify this for people is what I do. You got 3 macronutrients. You've got carbohydrates, you've got fats, and then you've got protein. Picture your carbohydrates as like, if I had on this table, a pile of cotton balls, okay? Your protein is like a rolled up newspaper, and your muscle and your body fat, this right here, this is like a big old wooden log, okay? So our brains function almost exclusively off glucose. They call it sugar. It's supposed to, your food breaks down as sugar, your body stores it in your muscle fibers, a little bit extra stored as glycogen, okay? When your brain needs that glucose, it doesn't have time to light that log. The first readily available source of fuel is going to be that pile of cotton balls. So if you need to start a fire, you start that pile of cotton balls. Lights really quick, but doesn't last very long. So your brain needs more fuel. Cotton balls are gone. You're on a low-carb diet or a low-calorie diet. What's the next thing it goes to? The next readily available fuel source is going to be that rolled-up newspaper. So it starts chewing up muscle tissue. And that's where, Valerie and you guys were talking about before that there's people that are skinny, but your body's used up that protein, use up that muscle tissue because it doesn't have time to get to that log. So it begins to chew up the muscle tissue. It's called gluconeogenesis. It converts protein and muscle tissue to glucose, i.e. sugar, which is what Atkins never talked about. That's a process your body uses to survive, breaks down protein and muscle to get to the brain. You're losing muscle tissue as well as water. Because when you lose that muscle tissue, you're losing all the water that's in there as well. So on the scale, guess what? You're dropping 15, 20 pounds like that. And you're over there patting yourself on the back. Meanwhile, your body fat percentage, how much of the weight you do have is skyrocketing, and your body fat percentage is going up as well, and your metabolism is going through the roof, is plummeting. And it just begins this vicious cycle that everyone's been on. I mean, we've had diets for centuries. They don't work.
Right. Well, we've got about, like I said, we got about 5 minutes left. Can I borrow your fat thing there for a minute? I was just sitting. Fat is my friend. I was just trying to think. I was sitting there putting this in perspective, and I was, can you make, how's that legit?
Puts in perspective. That's 5 pounds.
No, I won't go there.
Yeah.
I won't go there. Praise God.